Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Tomorrow Revenge, where you can witness the power of women. Please follow us to hear today's story. The leather-bound books in my father's study smelled like betrayal. I stood at attention before his oak desk, my civilian clothes feeling like a costume. For years at West Point, 8 years in the Army, 2 combat tours, and here I was being dismissed like a misbehaving cadet. Effective immediately, James North said, his voice the same cold baritone that had commanded 3 divisions. You are no longer considered a member of this family. The words hung between us, precise and surgical. My father didn't shout. The angrier he was, the quieter he became. Right now, he was practically whispering, because I chose the Rangers over JAG. I said, my own voice steady. I'd practiced this moment in my head for weeks. Because you chose spectacle over substance, he corrected, not looking up from the document he was signing. My discharge from the family, no doubt, because you chose to play soldier in the mud when you could have served with honor in the Judge Advocate General's Corps. Your grandfather helped establish that branch. My record speaks for itself. I said, top of my class at Ranger School, 2 Bronze Stars. My team, your team, he interrupted, finally looking up. His eyes were the color of gunmetal. Yes, your little band of cowboys, while your brother has risen through proper channels, while he has brought honor to the North name. My brother Jack stood by the window, silhouetted against the Virginia sunset. He hadn't said a word since I entered the room. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Jack followed your blueprint. I said, I wanted to write my own. And you've written it in the sand. Father said, capping his fountain pen. Your mother, God rest her soul, would be ashamed. That was the cut that found flesh. I felt my composure crack. Don't you dare bring her into this. She supported my choices. She humored your fantasies, he corrected. There's a difference. I took a breath. The air in the room suddenly thinned. The study was a museum of North military history. My great-grandfather's saber from the Great War, my grandfather's flag from Korea, father's medals from Desert Storm, and now my absence would be the newest exhibit. So that's it. I asked, after everything, I'm just erased. You've erased yourself, Abby, he said, using the childhood nickname I hadn't heard in a decade. When you refused the JAG appointment, you refused your legacy. The North family has served this country with distinction for 4 generations. As officers, as leaders, not as infantry. The way he said infantry made it sound like a dirty word. I lead men and women in combat, I said, my hands curling into fists at my sides. I bring them home. What's more honorable than that? Dying for a pointless conflict? He shot back. The war you're fighting isn't in the history books, Abby. It's not even in the newspapers. It's a shadow war, and you're a shadow soldier. At least in JAG, you'd have a real career, a future. I have a future, I said, but the words sounded hollow even to me. My future, as of 3 days ago, was classified. I couldn't tell him about the promotion. I couldn't tell him about the new command. Operational security sealed my lips as effectively as his disapproval sealed my fate. Jack finally stirred. Father, maybe. Quiet, Jack. Father said without looking at him, your sister has made her choice. Now, she lives with the consequences. I looked at my brother, really looked at him. 3 years older. The perfect son, West Point, airborne, Ranger tab, quick promotion to major. Now, Lieutenant Colonel selectee. He'd taken every assignment, Father suggested, married the daughter of a senator, had 2 photogenic children. He was the North family masterpiece, and I was the smear on the canvas. You're really not going to say anything? I asked him. Jack's eyes finally met mine, and I saw the conflict there, the guilt. But when he spoke, his voice was firm. You knew the rules, Abby. The family comes first. The legacy comes first. Your brother understands duty, Father said, something you've never grasped. That was the final straw. The years of comparison, the sidelong glances at family gatherings, the way my accomplishments were always framed as good for a woman, or impressive for someone who took the hard way. My duty is to my country, I said, my voice dropping to match his quiet intensity. Not to your ego, not to some dusty old idea of what a North should be. For a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not anger, but something like pain. Then it was gone. buried under decades of military discipline. "Get out," he said softly. "You're no daughter of mine." The words should have hurt more. Maybe I'd been preparing for them for so long that when they finally came, they just felt inevitable. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "You know, for all your talk about honor, you're the most dishonorable man I've ever met. You demand loyalty, but give none. You preach family, but exile anyone who doesn't fit your mold. What does that make you, father? What kind of legacy is that?" He didn't respond, just went back to his paperwork, as if I'd already ceased to exist. Jack took a step toward me. "Abby, wait, don't," I said, holding up a hand. "Just don't." I walked out of the study, down the long hallway lined with portraits of North men in uniform. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, my brother, a gallery of grim-faced soldiers, all judging me for breaking rank. The front door of the estate closed behind me with a finality that echoed in my bones. The evening air was cool, the sky purpling with twilight. My car, a practical Jeep, not the luxury sedans my family favored, waited in the circular driveway. I got in, started the engine, and just sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, watching the lights come on in the house I'd grown up in, the house that was no longer my home. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "The package is delivered, awaiting your instructions." Right, the real world, the one that didn't care about family dramas or patriarchal disappointments. I had a job to do, a mission. I was about to drive away when my phone buzzed again. This time it was from Jack. "The promotion ceremony is next Friday at the Pentagon. You should come. Please." I stared at the message. His promotion to lieutenant colonel. The celebration of everything I'd supposedly failed at. The perfect North Sun. Ascending the ladder, I jumped off. My first instinct was to delete it, to drive away and never look back, to lose myself in my work, in the shadow war my father despised. But something stopped me. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was the desire to show them I wasn't hiding. Maybe it was the need to prove that I could stand in that room, surrounded by their judgment, and not break. I typed a reply, "I'll be there." Then I drove away from the North Estate for what I believed was the last time, not knowing that in exactly 7 days, a retired master sergeant would change everything with 3 words and a salute. The Pentagon's Hall of Heroes was everything I hated about military pomp. Polished floors that reflected the chandeliers, walls lined with battle flags, the murmur of important people making important conversation. The air smelled of old money, new ambition, and just enough gun oil to remind you this was, at its heart, a war machine. I stood near the back, feeling conspicuously civilian in my simple black dress. Around me, uniforms glittered with ribbons and stars. Senators and congressmen held court in small circles. Defense contractors laughed a little too loudly at jokes that weren't that funny. Jack's promotion party was in full swing. The invitation had said celebration of service, but everyone knew what it really was. James North presenting his heir to the Washington establishment. Look at my perfect son. Look at the future of the North legacy. Pay no attention to the daughter who failed. Abby, is that you? I turned to see Margaret Connolly, my mother's oldest friend. She'd been at our family Christmases, had watched me grow up. Now her smile was strained, her eyes darting around to see who might be watching her talk to the disgraced North daughter. "Hello, Mrs. Connolly," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "You look well," she said, the pause speaking volumes. "I was surprised to see you here." "Jack invited me." Of course he did. He was always the kind one. She leaned closer, dropping her voice. "Your father, he's not happy you came." "I didn't come to make him happy." She flinched at my tone. "Abby, dear, maybe it's not too late. If you apologized, if you took a proper assignment, I have a proper assignment." "Mrs. Connolly." "Yes, but," she gestured vaguely, "you know what I mean. Something fitting. Your mother would have wanted." "Don't." I cut her off, sharper than I intended. "Please don't tell me what my mother would have wanted. You have no idea." She drew back, her face tightening. "Well, I see the Army hasn't improved your manners." "No, ma'am," I said evenly. "It taught me that sometimes manners get in the way of the truth." She sniffed and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Another bridge burned. Not that there were many left. I made my way to the bar, ordered a whiskey neat, and took up a position where I could observe without being too visible. Old habits from reconnaissance training. find the high ground, watch the patterns, identify the threats. The threats were everywhere. There was Senator Reynolds, who tried to get me discharged when I testified about equipment failures that got 2 of my Rangers killed. He was shaking my father's hand, all smiles. There was General Price, who'd told me to my face that women had no place in special operations. He was clapping Jack on the back, beaming like a proud uncle. There was my cousin Richard, who'd spread the rumor that I had slept my way through Ranger School. He was holding court with a group of junior officers, no doubt telling the story again. And there, in the center of it all, was my family. James North stood straight-backed and proud, the silver stars on his shoulders catching the light. At 60, he looked like Central Casting's idea of a general. Granite jaw, close-cropped, gray hair, eyes that missed nothing. He was smiling, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes, the kind you practiced in the mirror. Beside him, Jack looked uncomfortable in his new lieutenant colonel's uniform. He kept scanning the crowd, his eyes finally finding mine. He gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod, an apology, a warning, both. His wife, Caroline, was the perfect officer's spouse. Tasteful dress, perfect makeup, smiling at all the right people. She'd never liked me, thought I was unstable, thought I reflected poorly on Jack. She'd gotten her wish. I was no longer a North. Now she just had to make sure I stayed that way. I was about to get another drink when a hand touched my elbow. "I'm surprised to see you here." My father, he'd moved through the crowd like a shark through calm water, everyone parting before him without realizing why. "Jack invited me," I said, not turning to look at him, "and I'm asking you to leave." Now I turned. "Why?" "Afraid I'll embarrass you." "You've done that already," he said, his voice low. "This is your brother's night. Don't make it about you." "I'm just here to congratulate him." "You're here to make a point," he corrected, "and your point has been made. You chose your path. Now let your brother have his moment." I took a sip of my whiskey, letting the burn steady me. "You know, for a man who talks so much about family, you're pretty determined to tear yours apart." "You did that when you walked away," he said, "when you chose that outfit over your own blood." "The Rangers aren't an outfit," I said, my voice dropping. "They're the best soldiers in the world, and I'm proud to lead them." "Lead them where?" he shot back. "To more graves? To more pointless fights in deserts nobody cares about? At least in Jag, you'd be building something, making a real difference," says the man who commanded the 101st Airborne in Iraq. I countered, "How many of your soldiers died for that real difference?" "Father." His jaw tightened. For a second, I thought I'd gone too far. Then he said, quietly, "Get out, Abby, before I have you removed." "You wouldn't. Try me." We stood there, locked in a silent battle, the party swirling around us. People were starting to notice. Heads were turning. Whispers were spreading. Then Jack was there, inserting himself between us. "Dad, Abby, not here. Please. Your sister was just leaving," Father said, not taking his eyes off me. "Actually," I said, "I think I'll stay for the toast. Wouldn't want to miss my big brother's big moment." Father's eyes went cold. "You always were stubborn. Even as a child, you'd rather break than bend." "I learned from the best," I said, and walked away, leaving them standing there. I found a relatively quiet corner near the terrace doors and watched as the formal part of the evening began. A 2-star general I didn't know took the podium and started praising the North legacy. How James North had served with distinction. How Jack North was following in his footsteps. How the future of the Army was in good hands. Blah, blah, blah. I'd heard it all before. The same speeches, the same platitudes, the same careful editing of history to make everyone look heroic. My phone vibrated in my clutch. A secure message, "Call me. Urgent." I slipped out onto the terrace. The night air was cool, a welcome relief from the stuffy room. Below, the Potomac glittered with reflected lights. I dialed the number from memory. "Sir," I said when he answered. "Avi," said General Mitchell, my current and only ally in the upper ranks. "Where are you?" "My brother's promotion party." A pause. "Christ. Why?" "Long story. What's urgent?" "The Senate confirmation hearing is moved up. They're voting on your promotion tomorrow." I leaned against the railing. "Tomorrow?" I thought I had another week. "Politics," Mitchell said, the word sounding like a curse. "Someone's pushing it through. My guess? Your father's friends want it done before he finds out and tries to block it. He can't block it, I said, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. James North had friends on the Armed Services Committee. He had favors to call in. If he found out I was up for my star, he can make it messy. Mitchell said, and right now, we can't afford messy. The operation in Yemen is heating up. I need you confirmed and in command before the shit hits the fan. Understood, I said. What do you need from me? Stay low. Don't give anyone a reason to question your judgment. And for God's sake, don't get into a public fight with your father. I glanced back through the glass doors. Inside, my father was giving his speech now. One hand on Jack's shoulder. The perfect father. The perfect son. Too late for that. I murmured. What was that? Nothing, sir. I'll keep my head down. Good. I'll call you after the vote. And Avi. Yes, sir. Congratulations, General. You earned it. The line went dead. I stood there for a moment, the phone in my hand, the words echoing in my head. General, after all of it, the doubts, the fights, the years of proving myself, I'd done it. I'd gotten my star, or I would. Tomorrow, assuming the Senate confirmed me, assuming my father didn't find a way to stop it, I should have been elated. This was everything I'd worked for. The validation, the proof that I was right, that my path was valid, that I was just as good as any Northman. But standing there alone on the terrace, watching my family celebrate without me, all I felt was empty. The terrace door opened, and Jack stepped out. Hey, he said, joining me at the railing. You okay? Peachy, he sighed. Avi, about Dad, don't. I said, just don't. He loves you, you know. I barked a laugh. He has a funny way of showing it. He's old school, Jack said. He thinks he's protecting you. By disowning me? By trying to steer you toward a safer path. Jack looked at me, his face earnest. He saw what happened to Mom, how she worried every time he deployed. He didn't want that for you. Our mother had died of cancer when I was 12, a slow, painful death that my father had been powerless to stop. He'd been in Bosnia at the time, commanding a peacekeeping mission. He'd made it home for the funeral, but not for the last weeks, not for the goodbyes. This isn't about Mom, I said, though maybe it was. A little. Maybe everything was about Mom, about the way her death had hollowed us all out, left us broken in different ways. Maybe not, Jack said, but cut him some slack. Okay, he's trying. He's trying to control me. There's a difference. We stood in silence for a moment, watching the river. I'm proud of you, you know, Jack said quietly. What you've done. The Rangers, that's not easy, especially for a woman. I finished for him. I was going to say anyone, he said, but we both knew that wasn't true. Look, I know I haven't been the best brother. I know I should have stood up for you more. But Dad, he's not an easy man to stand up to. I managed. You're stronger than me, he said, and he meant it. I could hear it in his voice. The admission cost him something. Before I could respond, the door opened again. Caroline stood there, her smile tight. Jack, honey, they're waiting for you. The photographer wants a family picture. I'll be right there, Jack said. Caroline's eyes flicked to me, then back to Jack. Your father said to tell you she's not to be in the pictures. Of course, I wasn't family anymore. I was a stain on the perfect North portrait. Tell Dad I'll be there in a minute, Jack said, his voice cooler than I'd ever heard it. Caroline hesitated, then turned and went back inside. I should go, I said. I've caused enough trouble. Wait, Jack said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I was going to give you this later, but here. I took the box, opened it. Inside, on a bed of velvet, was our grandfather's watch, the one he'd worn in Korea, the one that was supposed to go to the first North to make general. I looked at Jack, stunned. You can't give me this. Dad will. It's mine to give, Jack said, and you deserve it more than I do. Jack, I know about the promotion. Avi, I froze. How? General Mitchell's aide plays poker with my XO. Word gets around. He smiled, a real smile this time. General North has a nice ring to it. It's not official yet, I said, closing the box, holding it tight. And don't tell Dad, please. Your secret's safe with me, he said, but you can't keep it forever. Once it's official, I know. I took a breath. Thank you for this, for everything. You're my sister, he said simply. That doesn't change, no matter what Dad says. He He pulled me into a hug, quick and tight, then turned and went back inside, leaving me alone on the terrace with my grandfather's watch and a secret that felt too big to hold. I was about to follow him in when I saw a familiar figure making his way through the crowd inside. An older man, built like a bulldog, his hair buzzed short and gray. He moved with the slight stiffness of old injuries, but his bearing was pure military. Master Sergeant Mike Carson, my father's right-hand man for 20 years, the man who'd taught me how to shoot, how to read a map, how to tie a proper knot, the man who'd been more of a father to me in some ways than my own. I hadn't seen him since the funeral, since he'd retired and moved to Florida. What was he doing here? He was heading toward my father, a determined look on his face. My father saw him, and for a split second, I saw genuine surprise, then pleasure, then something else. Concern, curious. I moved closer to the doors, watching through the glass. Carson reached my father. They shook hands, clapped each other on the back. Old soldiers reuniting. Then Carson said something, and my father's face changed. The smile froze. The eyes went cold. Carson was looking around the room now, scanning faces, looking for someone, looking for me. Our eyes met through the glass. He nodded once, a sharp, military gesture. Then he started making his way toward the terrace doors, cutting through the crowd like a knife. I stepped back from the doors, my heart suddenly pounding. What was this? Why was he here? Why was he looking for me? The door opened, and Mike Carson stepped out onto the terrace. He was older than I remembered, lines deeper on his face, but his eyes were the same, sharp, intelligent, missing nothing. "Avi North," he said, his voice a gravelly rumble. "Been a while." "Master Sergeant," I said, falling into old habits. "What are you doing here?" "Heard your brother was getting promoted," he said, coming to stand beside me at the railing. "Thought I'd pay my respects." "That's not the whole truth," I said. Carson had never been one for social calls. He smiled, a quick flash of teeth. "No, it's not." He looked me over, his eyes taking in everything. The simple dress, the lack of makeup, the way I stood, the watch in my hand. "That your grandfather's?" he asked, nodding at the watch. "Jack just gave it to me. Good man, your brother wants to do the right thing, just doesn't always know what that is." He looked at me. "You, on the other hand, you always knew, even when it got you in trouble. Why are you here, Master Sergeant?" I asked again. "Heard a rumor," he said, his voice dropping. "Down in Florida, playing golf with an old buddy from the Pentagon. Heard there's a North getting a star. Assumed it was your brother. Then I asked around, found out it wasn't." I said nothing. My mouth was dry. "Your father doesn't know, does he?" Carson asked. "No, he's not going to like it. I know." Carson nodded slowly. "Always were stubborn, just like him. Only difference is, you're stubborn about the right things." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Means your father's a great soldier, one of the best I ever served with. But he's so busy looking backward, he can't see what's right in front of him." Carson turned to face me fully. "You're getting that star because you earned it, not because of your name, not because of who your father is, because you're damn good at what you do, and in our business, that's the only thing that matters." "Thank you," I said, the words inadequate. "Don't thank me," he said. "Just promise me one thing." "What?" "When they pin that star on your shoulder, you remember where you came from, but you don't let it define where you're going." He paused. "Your father, he thinks the North name is a legacy to uphold. I think it's a shadow to step out of. Your call, which it is." Before I could respond, the terrace door opened again. My father stood there, his face like thunder. "Mike," he said, his voice tight, "I need to speak with you." "In a minute, General," Carson said, not taking his eyes off me. "Now," my father said, the command voice in full effect. "Carson Sight, 20 years retired, and he still thinks he can order me around." He gave me a last look. "Remember what I said, Avi, your call." Then he turned and followed my father back inside, leaving me alone on the terrace with my thoughts and my grandfather's watch. Through the glass, I watched them. My father was talking, his face animated, angry. Carson was listening, his expression unreadable. Then Carson said something, and my father took a step back, as if struck. What had Carson said? What had he come here to do? I didn't have to wait long to find out. A few minutes later, Carson emerged from the crowd again. This time, he wasn't heading for the terrace. He was heading for the small dais where the microphone stood, where the speeches had been given. My father saw him, started moving through the crowd, but he was too late. Carson reached the dais, tapped the microphone. The feedback squeal cut through the party chatter. Conversations died. Heads turned. "Ladies and gentlemen," Carson said, his voice booming through the speakers, "if I could have your attention for just a moment." The room went quiet. 200 people turned to look at the old master sergeant standing at the front of the room. "I know this is Jack's night," Carson said, "and I don't want to take away from that. Jack's a fine officer. He'll do great things." He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd, looking for me, finding me, standing by the terrace doors. "But there's another North here tonight," he said. "One who's also done great things. One who's about to do even greater things." A murmur went through the crowd. My father had stopped moving. He was staring at Carson, his face pale. "Most of you know me," Carson continued. "Mike Carson served with General North for 20 years, taught his kids how to shoot, watched them grow up, been proud of both of them." He paused again, his eyes locked on mine. "But I'm especially proud of one of them tonight," he said, "because sometimes the hardest thing a soldier can do isn't charging a hill or taking objective. It's standing up for what they believe in. It's taking the hard path because it's the right path." My heart was hammering against my ribs. What was he doing? "So if you'll indulge an old soldier," Carson said, "I'd like to do something I've been waiting to do for a long time." He stepped down from the dais, started walking through the crowd, people parting before him, a path opening up, a path that led straight to me. He stopped in front of me. The entire room was watching, silent, holding their breath. My father was pushing through the crowd now, his face dark with anger. "Mike, don't you dare!" But Carson wasn't listening. He came to attention, his back straight, his shoulders squared. The old soldier, giving one last salute, he raised his hand to his brow, crisp and perfect. Every eye in the room was on us, on him, on me. And then he spoke, his voice clear and strong, carrying in the silent room. "General North, ma'am." 3 words. That's all it was. 3 words. And my world changed forever. Time stopped. The hum of the air conditioning, the clink of glasses, the whisper of fabric as 200 people shifted to watch. All of it faded into a distant white noise, muffled by the thunder of my own heartbeat in my ears. "General North, ma'am." Carson's hand stayed at his brow, his posture rigid with military precision. His eyes, sharp and clear, held mine. In them, I saw no mockery, no joke, only respect and a challenge. The silence in the Hall of Heroes was absolute. You could have heard a metal drop. Then the whispers started, a rising tide of disbelief. Did he just say general? But Jack's only making lieutenant colonel. He must mean her father. But he's looking at her. I stood frozen, the velvet box containing my grandfather's watch a dead weight in my hand. My mind, trained for rapid assessment under fire, scrambled, damage control, denial, deflection, but my mouth was dry, my tongue a useless piece of cloth. The secret I'd clutched so tightly had just been shouted to the entire Washington establishment across the room. My father's face was a mask of utter, uncomprehending shock. It was an expression I'd never seen on him before. James North was never surprised. He was the one who orchestrated surprises. His gaze darted from Carson's ramrod straight back to my paralyzed form and back. I saw the moment understanding dawned, and with it, a fury so profound the color drained from his face, leaving 2 angry spots high on his cheeks. Jack looked like he'd been struck. He mouthed my name, his eyes wide with a panic that mirrored my own. A camera flash went off. Then another, the press pool, here for the anodyne military family legacy story, had just stumbled onto a bombshell. Carson lowered his salute, the motion crisp and final. The spell broke. Sound rushed back in a cacophony of confused voices, urgent questions, the scrape of chairs as people stood for a better view. "Master Sergeant," I finally managed, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "That's not, it is, ma'am," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear, yet carrying the weight of certainty. "Got it from Mitchell's own aide. Senate Armed Services voted 18-0 an hour ago. Confidential until morning. But the call's been made. It's yours." So Mitchell's urgent call, the moved up hearing, it was done. I was confirmed. The reality of it hit me like a physical blow. The star, the command, the vindication, it was all real, and it was now a public spectacle. "Carson!" My father's voice cut through the buzz, a whip crack of authority. He strode forward, the crowd parting before him like the Red Sea. He stopped beside the old master sergeant, his eyes blazing. "What the hell is this? Explain yourself." Carson turned to face him, utterly unruffled, the retired enlisted man facing the retired general. The difference in rank meant nothing here. Not anymore. "Evening, General North. Just paying my respects to the newest flag officer in the room." "Don't you play games with me, Master Sergeant," my father hissed, keeping his voice down, though every ear in the place was straining to hear. "My daughter is a major. She commands a ranger company. There is no General North here except for me." "With all due respect, sir," Carson said, and his tone made it clear the respect was thin on the ground. "You're a few hours behind the power curve. Might want to check your sources." A woman pushed her way to the front, a digital recorder thrust out like a weapon. "Sarah Chin, from the Post. I knew her. She was sharp, and she smelled blood in the water. Major North? Is this true? Have you been promoted to Brigadier General?" All eyes were on me. My father's glare was a physical pressure. Jack's face was a plea. Carson's was a steady, unwavering expectation. I had a choice. I could deny it. I could say Carson was confused, that it was a misunderstanding, a bad joke. I could slink away and let the Pentagon's Public Affairs Office issue a quiet correction tomorrow. I could go back into the shadows. I looked at my father. I saw in his face not just anger, but a profound, bedrock certainty that this could not be, that the universe did not work this way, that his daughter, the one who had failed, the one he had cast out, could not possibly have ascended to a rank that he, in all his glory, had only achieved at 52. I was 38. The fear, the uncertainty, the desperate need for his approval that had haunted me for a decade, it evaporated, burned away by the sheer, arrogant disbelief in his eyes. I stood up straight. I let my shoulders drop back, the posture of command settling onto me as naturally as a well-worn jacket. I looked past Sarah Chen, past my father, to the room, to the sea of faces filled with curiosity, skepticism, and in some cases, dawning, horrified realization. "The Senate confirmed my promotion earlier this evening," I said, my voice clear and steady, carrying without shouting. "I haven't received official orders yet. My assignment is pending." A sterile, by-the-book statement. It told them nothing and everything. The room erupted. My father actually took a step back, as if my words were a physical force. The look on his face, it was more than shock. It was a fundamental rewriting of his reality. The foundation of his worldview had just cracked. Sarah Chun was talking rapidly into her recorder, breaking here at the Pentagon, apparent confirmation that Major Avi North, daughter of retired General James North, has been promoted to Brigadier General, reportedly confirmed by the Senate just hours ago. Other reporters were on their phones. The social climbers and power brokers were recalculating the woman they'd snubbed. The daughter who'd been cast out was now one of the youngest flag officers in the U.S. military, a general, their general. Jack broke from his stunned silence. He walked over, not to my father, but to me. He stopped before me, looked at my face, and I saw it there. The pride, the wonder, the "I told you so" that he'd never been brave enough to say. Without a word, he came to attention, not a full salute. We were in civilian clothes, at a social event, but a sharp, respectful nod of the head, a brother's acknowledgement, a fellow officer's respect. That small gesture meant more than all the staring in the room. My father found his voice again. "Abby, my study, now." It was the voice that had commanded divisions. That brooked no argument. I looked at him. "I'm not one of your subordinates, General, and this isn't your study." His eyes widened. "No one talked to James North like that. Especially not in public. Especially not me. You will explain this farce, he spat. There's nothing to explain, I said, my tone cool. My career is a matter of public record. Or it will be. Tomorrow. I turned to Carson. Master Sergeant, thank you for your timely congratulations. It's good to see you. Carson's lips quirked in a slight smile. My pleasure, General. Always knew you had it in you. I needed air. I needed to think. I needed to call Mitchell and find out what fresh hell this publicity storm was about to unleash on my still classified command. I turned and walked toward the main doors. The crowd parted before me, their expressions a blur of astonishment, calculation, and newfound, obsequious respect. I heard my name whispered, now with a different, reverent tone. General North. I was almost to the door when a hand gripped my arm, not my father's, Caroline's. Her perfect mask had slipped, revealing raw, furious betrayal. How could you, she hissed, her voice low and venomous. How could you do this to him? To Jack? This was his night. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then slowly back up to her face. I didn't say a word. I just held her gaze until her fingers loosened and fell away. You ruin everything, she whispered. No, I said quietly, just for her. I just stopped letting him define what everything is. I walked out of the Hall of Heroes, the buzz of conversation swelling behind me like a wave. I didn't go to the terrace. I headed for the nearest exit, hitting the speed dial for General Mitchell as I walked. He answered on the first ring. Abby, I'm guessing you've seen the news. It's not on the news yet, sir, I said, pushing through a heavy door into a sterile, tiled hallway. It's currently being broadcast live from my brother's promotion party. Care to explain how a retired master sergeant knew about my confirmation before I did? Mitchell sighed, a long, weary sound. Carson. You know him. Everyone knows Mike Carson. He's a damn institution, and he plays poker with my chief of staff, who has a big mouth after 3 scotches. I'm sorry, Abby. The leak wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? I asked, leaning against the cool wall. Quietly, a DoD press release tomorrow. Your father would have seen it with his morning coffee. You'd already be at Bragg, prepping your unit. By the time the dust settled, you'd be in the air and unreachable. He paused. This is Messier. Understatement, sir. I pinched the bridge of my nose. What's the fallout? The press will have a field day. Disowned daughter becomes general. Family feud at the Pentagon. Your father's friends on the Hill will be pissed. They'll demand hearings, reviews. Can they block it now that it's done? No, a Senate confirmation is a Senate confirmation, but they can make your life hell. They can stall your assignment, leak details about your ops, dig for dirt. He paused. How bad is it with your father? I thought of the look on his face, the sheer, unadulterated fury. Thermonuclear, sir. Right. Mitchell was silent for a moment. Change of plans. You're not going back to Bragg tonight. Sir, get to the Navy Yard now. There's a secure briefing room in Building 111. I'm sending a car. Your new command just got a lot more urgent. The shift was jarring. 1 minute, I was at the center of a family drama. The next, I was being summoned to a secure briefing. It was a welcome return to reality. Understood. I'm on my way. And Avi. Yes, sir. Congratulations, General. Welcome to the show. It only gets harder from here. The line went dead. I stood in the empty hallway, the silence a stark contrast to the chaos I'd left behind. General North. The words still felt alien. For years, my goal had been to prove I was good enough. Now I had the star to prove it, and all I felt was a cold, hard knot of responsibility in my gut, and a simmering anger at the man who'd made the journey so damn difficult. I was about to head for the parking garage when the door behind me opened. I turned, expecting a reporter, or maybe my father, in furious pursuit. It was Jack. He was alone, his dress uniform jacket unbuttoned. He looked older than he had an hour ago. Abby, wait. I have to go. Jack. I know. I heard. He gestured vaguely. The whole room heard. Dad's in there giving a statement to the press, trying to do damage control, calling it a proud, if unexpected, moment for the family. Jack gave a short, bitter laugh. He's a piece of work. He is who he is, I said tiredly. Jack came closer. Is it true? The promotion? Yes. A star? Abby, that's incredible. The awe in his voice was genuine. How? I mean, I knew you were up for '06, maybe, but a star? It's a long story, and it's classified. Of course it is. He ran a hand through his hair. Look, what Carson did in there, that was a hell of a way to find out. But he's right, you know, we're all proud of you. I'm proud of you. Thanks, Jack. Dad will come around. He has to. You're a general. I shook my head. He won't see it as an achievement. He'll see it as a fluke, or worse, a political handout. Something they gave me because I'm a North, or because I'm a woman. He'll never believe I earned it. Before Jack could argue, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with ADC, area code, car en route, ETA, 3-minute, south entrance. I have to go, I said again, starting down the hall. Wait. Jack caught up to me. Where are you going? What's happening? I can't say. I stopped and faced him. Jack, listen to me. Things might get complicated. If anyone asks you about me, about my work, you don't know anything. You understand? Not a thing. His face grew serious, the officer in him pushing aside the brother. What kind of trouble are you in? The kind that comes with the job. I said, just promise me, for your sake, and Caroline's, and the kids. Plead ignorance. He searched my face, then nodded slowly. Okay, I promise. He hesitated. Will I see you again? I thought about the secure briefing, the rushed deployment, the classified nature of my new command. The life I was stepping into was one of shadows and secrets, far from the glittering halls of the Pentagon. I don't know, I said honestly. I reached out, squeezed his arm. Take care of yourself, Lieutenant Colonel. I turned and walked away, leaving my brother standing alone in the fluorescent-lit hallway. I didn't look back. The south entrance was a service door, away from the main crowd and the lingering press. A black SUV with government plates idled at the curb. The driver, a young specialist, jumped out as I approached. General North, he asked, snapping a salute. The title, from a stranger, in the cool night air, finally made it real. A shiver that was part terror, part exhilaration went through me. As you were, specialist, I said, returning the salute. Let's go. I slid into the back seat. The SUV pulled away from the curb, merging into the D.C. traffic. I watched the Pentagon recede in the window, a monstrous, 5-sided fortress that had just become the stage for the most shocking moment of my life. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number, but I recognized the style. Carson here. Sorry for the dramatics. General, seemed like you needed a hand stepping out of that shadow. Your old man's on the warpath. Watch your 6, and congratulations. You earned it. MSGTC. I stared at the message. The old master sergeant, stirring the pot from retirement. He'd thrown a grenade into the middle of my life. But maybe, just maybe, he'd also blown open a door I'd been struggling to unlock for years. I typed a reply. No apologies necessary. Master Sergeant. Sometimes a direct approach is best. Thank you. A moment later, a response anytime. General, if you need an old gunny, you know where to find me. I leaned back in the seat, the events of the evening playing in a chaotic loop in my mind. The disowning, the party, the salute, the stunned faces, my father's fury, Jack's conflicted pride, the long-buried respect in Carson's eyes. General North. The SUV sped through the night, away from the world of ceremonies and legacies, and toward the world of secrets and wars. I was no longer Major Avi North, disowned daughter. I was Brigadier General Avi North, commanding officer, and my war, it seemed, was just beginning on 2 fronts. The black SUV didn't take me to the Navy Yard. 10 minutes into the drive, the specialist behind the wheel spoke up, his eyes on the rear view. Change of plans. General, we're going to Anacostia Balling Airfield. Why the change? I asked, my senses immediately heightening. Mitchell had said the Navy Yard. General Mitchell's orders. Ma'am, said the situation is fluid. Your wheels up in 30. Wheels up. The phrase sent a familiar, electric jolt through my system. The pre-mission adrenaline, sharp and clean, began to override the emotional chaos of the evening. This was a language I understood. Orders, timelines, movement. Understood, I said, settling back. I glanced at my dress and small clutch. I'm not exactly packed for travel. Specialist. Your gear is being forward deployed, ma'am. Civilian clothes will suffice for the flight. You'll be met at the other end. The other end, which could be anywhere, Bragg, Tampa, Stuttgart, or somewhere with no name on a public map. I watched the lights of Washington slide by, the monuments glowing in the night, the city of politics and pageants. I was leaving it behind, again, this time, perhaps for good. My phone lit up with notifications, emails, texts, missed calls. News alerts were already popping up. Dynasty drama. Estranged North daughter makes general. I switched it to silent, then powered it down completely. The circus could wait. I had a job to do. Anacostia balling was quiet, the airfield lit by the cool blue glow of runway lights. We drove past the main gates, through a secure checkpoint where the specialist flashed credentials, and onto the tarmac where a Gulfstream G550, its engines whining in a low, pre-flight hum, waited. The sleek, unmarked jet was the preferred chariot of senior officials and special operators who needed to move fast and quiet. A figure stood at the bottom of the air stairs. General Mitch Mitchell, a bear of a man with a shaved head and a reputation for getting impossible things done, nodded as I approached. He was in civilian clothes, khakis, and a windbreaker, but he might as well have been in full battle rattle for the energy he projected. Abby, he said, foregoing the salute in the operational environment. His handshake was crushing. Hell of a coming-out party. Wasn't my idea, sir. Carson always did have a flair for the dramatic. Mitchell grunted, gesturing for me to board. Come on, we're burning darkness. Inside, the jet was configured for command and control, not comfort. Banks of secure communications equipment lined one side. For other people were already strapped in. 2 men and 2 women, all in civilian attire, all with the focused, weary look of people who lived on crisis time. I recognized one of them, Lisa Tran, a brilliant and ruthless intelligence analyst from DIA. General, Tran said, giving me a nod. The others followed suit, their appraising glances taking in the black dress. I saw the flicker of curiosity. The gossip from the Pentagon had clearly preceded me, but it was quickly buried under professional detachment. Mitchell took the seat opposite me as the jet began to taxi. Stow the personal drama for now. North, we have a situation that just went from simmer to full fucking boil. I'm listening, sir. He handed me a secure tablet. On it was a dossier, stamped top secret, // A face I knew stared back at me. Malik Rashid, a mid-level facilitator for the Ashta Brigades, a particularly vicious splinter group of ISIS remnants we'd been tracking. My team had captured him 14 months ago in a night raid outside Raqqa. The operation had been my ticket to the Star, a complex, high-risk extraction that netted not just Rashid, but a treasure trove of intelligence on European cell networks. Rashid, I said, was... Mitchell corrected grimly. He was being held at a black site in Lithuania. 6 hours ago, his brother, Tariq Rashid, leader of the Ashta Brigades, launched a simultaneous cyber and physical attack on the facility. They took out the comms, blinded the satellites for a 90-second window, and hit the place with a well-trained assault team. They got him out. A cold knot formed in my stomach. How? Inside help, a Lithuanian guard was turned. The details are still fuzzy. The point is, Malik Rashid is back in play, and he's not happy. Mitchell tapped the tablet, pulling up a new file. Intercepted chatter, time-stamped 2 hours ago. We have high confidence intel that Tariq has issued a NACAM, a blood vengeance, against the team that captured Malik. Names, faces, family details, the works. I scanned the list. My stomach dropped. There were my team leaders, my master sergeant, and at the top, Avi North. Commander, they're gunning for my people, I said, my voice flat, for everyone involved. Mitchell said, but you, General, you're the prize. The NACAM isn't just about killing you. It's about sending a message, humiliating the Americans, showing they can reach out and touch a general, the daughter of a famous general. On home soil, the propaganda value would be incalculable. The jet lifted smoothly into the night sky, the lights of D.C. falling away beneath us. I stared at the threat report. My home address in Virginia, my old apartment near Bragg, my father's estate, my brother's house in McLean. They have my family's addresses. I said, they do. We've already alerted Secret Service for your father. He still has a detail due to his tenure on a defense advisory board. We've got Fairfax County PD doing drive-bys on your brother's place, but that's a temporary fix. Mitchell leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Here's the operational reality, Avi. Rashid knows the window is small. He knows we'll throw everything at finding him. He'll move fast. He'll want a spectacular hit. And your very public coming out party tonight just painted the biggest, reddest target on your back and everyone near you. The pieces slammed together with brutal clarity. The promotion leak, Carson's salute, the media frenzy. It wasn't just family drama. It was a beacon. I had just been put on the world stage at the exact moment a terrorist with a personal grudge was looking for me. You think they were watching? I stated, I know they were. Lisa. Tran looked up from her laptop. The Ashta Brigades have a sophisticated media monitoring operation. They track you. News, social media, political events. A story about a new, young, female general with a famous name and a public family feud? That's catnip for their propaganda machine. We assess with high probability that they saw the coverage and have accelerated their timeline. You're not just a target now, General. You're a symbol. I closed my eyes for a second, pushing down the surge of guilt. My triumph, my moment of vindication, had potentially endangered everyone I cared about. What's the play, sir? Mitchell's face was grim. We're not going to hide you. That's what they'd expect. We're going to use you as bait. Sir, we're setting a trap, a high visibility, tightly controlled environment. We let them think they have a shot, and when they take it, we close the door. He pointed to the tablet. Your brother's promotion ceremony. The main event is tomorrow night at the Army and Navy Club. Black tie, media, dignitaries. Your father will be there. Your brother. The whole D.C. circus. I saw it immediately. You want to use the event as the venue. It's perfect. They'll expect you to be there, celebrating with your family after the big news. Security will be tight, but it's civilian security. Manageable for a determined team to penetrate. We'll let them think they've found a way in, and we'll be waiting. The risks are enormous, I said. We'd be putting hundreds of civilians, including senior officials, in a kill zone, which is why you're in command of the protective detail. Mitchell said. I stared at him. What? You heard me. Effective immediately. You are the on-scene commander for Operation Safeguard. Your mandate: protect the principals, your family, and the other attendees, and apprehend or eliminate the hostile force. You'll have a joint task force at your disposal. FBI, HRT, D.C., SWAT, and a platoon from Delta that's already on standby. They'll be embedded as additional security. Wait staff, you name it. The weight of it settled on me. He wasn't just giving me a command. He was giving me an impossible choice: to protect the family that had just cast me out, to use their lives as chips in a dangerous game, to prove my competence in the most public, high-stakes way imaginable. And my father? I asked quietly. Does he know about the threat or about my role? Mitchell's expression was unreadable. He knows there's a credible threat. The Secret Service informed him an hour ago. He does not know you're running the show, and he will not be told. As far as he and the world are concerned, the FBI is in charge. You will be my eyes on the ground and the commander of the tactical response. Your authority comes directly from me and the secretary. Anyone gives you shit, you flash this. He slid a folded letter across the table. It was a directive from the Secretary of Defense, authorizing Brigadier General Avi North to assume command of all federal and local assets for the duration of the threat. I took the letter. The paper felt heavy. He's going to hate this. I don't give a damn what James North hates, Mitchell said, his voice low and hard. This is national security. This is stopping an attack on you. Soil, your personal feelings, his ego. None of that matters. You're a general now, Avi. Your first duty is to the mission. Your second duty is to the people you're protecting, even the assholes. Can you do that? I met his gaze, the doubt, the anger, the lingering hurt from the study, from the party. I packed it all away and locked it in a mental vault. The woman in the black dress was gone. The soldier was here. Yes, sir. Good. He sat back. We land in 2 hours at a secure location. You'll be briefed by the full task force. You have 18 hours to turn a society gala into a fortress and a trap. Get to work. For For the next 90 minutes, the jet was a war room. Tran walked me through the latest intel. Suspected Ashta Brigade operatives who'd entered the country on false passports over the last month. Patterns in the chatter suggesting an attack within 48 hours. Schematics of the Army and Navy Club. I studied floor plans, security camera blind spots, service entrances, sewer access points. My mind raced, formulating plans, contingencies. I'd spent my career assaulting buildings, not defending them at a cocktail party. But the principles were the same. Control the terrain, know your enemy, protect the vulnerable. My phone, powered back on in secure mode, buzzed with a message, not from the task force, from Jack. Dad just got a call from the Secret Service. They're increasing his detail. They mentioned a non-specific threat against the family. What's going on? Abby, is this about you? I typed back, careful to be vague, but truthful. There is a threat. Security is being handled at the highest levels. Do exactly what they tell you. Keep Caroline and the kids close. His reply was immediate. They want to cancel the event tomorrow. Dad refused. Said it would look like we're scared. Of course he did. James North would rather face a bullet than show weakness. A strange, cold calm settled over me. His stubborn pride was now a factor in my operational equation, a risk to be mitigated. Understood. I texted back. The event will have security. Just be careful. Jack, you too. The jet began its descent. Out the window, I saw not the lights of a major airport, but the dark outlines of wooded hills and a single, well-lit runway. Camp Peary, Virginia, the farm. CIA territory. We were in deep. A black sedan whisked me from the plane to a nondescript building. Inside, in a situation room lined with monitors, 24 men and women waited. I saw the crisp haircuts and athletic builds of Delta operators, the more varied but equally sharp looks of FBI hostage rescue team members, the bulk of D.C. Metro SWAT. All eyes turned to me as I entered, still in the ridiculous black dress. A tall, lean man in a dark suit stepped forward. General North? Frank Decker, FBI. I've been told you're in command. His tone was neutral, but his eyes were skeptical, sweeping over my attire. That's correct. Agent Decker, I said, walking to the head of the table. I placed the secretary's letter beside the main monitor. I know what you're seeing. Ignore the clothes. In 12 hours, I'll be in kit, same as you. Right now, we have a job to do. Malik Rashid is free, and he's coming for me and my family. He's going to try to hit the Army and Navy Club tomorrow night. Our job is to let him think he can, and then shut him down. Hard. I activated the main screen, pulling up the floor plans. Let's start with the perimeter. I want layered security. Uniformed D.C. police on the outer cordon. FBI in plainclothes in the surrounding 3 blocks. Delta will be inside, posing as waitstaff, security, and guests. I pointed to a burly man with a sergeant first-class insignia on his polo shirt. Master Sergeant Cruz, your team gets the high ground, roofs, adjacent buildings. I want every window, every air vent, every sewer grate within 500 meters covered. Yes, ma'am. Cruz said, his skepticism replaced by focused professionalism. For the next 4 hours, we planned, we argued, we mapped out sight lines and fields of fire. We designated kill zones and safe corridors for civilian evacuation. We rehearsed a dozen scenarios, from a lone gunman to a coordinated assault with explosives. I deferred to Decker on the legalities of domestic law enforcement, to Cruz on the tactical nuances, but the final calls were mine. Where to place the sniper teams, how to structure the inner security perimeter, when to escalate from containment to lethal force. It was past 3 a.m. when we had a workable plan. The team dispersed to grab a few hours of sleep and begin preliminary deployments. I was left in the situation room with Tran and a cup of coffee that tasted like acid. You handled that well, Tran said, not looking up from her laptop. They're professionals. They just needed to know I wasn't a political hack. You're a general who got promoted today and is now the target of an assassination plot. If that's not political, I don't know what is. She finally looked at me. You know the hardest part won't be the bad guys, right? The principals, I said, nodding. My family, my father, they're not used to taking orders, especially from me. Especially from you, she agreed. Mitchell wants you to brief your father in person before the event. He needs to understand the gravity and follow the protocol. I sighed, rubbing my temples. The thought of facing him again, not as a disowned daughter, but as the officer in charge of his safety, was a special kind of dread. Now, he's at the estate. A car is waiting. The drive to the North family estate felt surreal. The same roads I'd driven just hours before, fleeing in anger. Now I was returning as something else. The Secret Service detail at the gate, expecting me, waved the sedan through. The house was lit up, every window blazing. My father was waiting in his study. Of course, he stood by the fireplace, still in his dress uniform pants and a white shirt, sleeves rolled up. He held a glass of amber liquid. He looked older, the lines on his face deeper in the harsh light. He didn't turn as I entered. The prodigal general returns. To what do I owe the honor? Come to gloat. There's a credible, specific threat against you, Jack, and the rest of the family, I said, my voice all business, tied to an operative my team captured. He was broken out of custody. He's declared blood vengeance. That got his attention. He turned, his eyes sharp. What's the source? The highest level, NSA, CIA all concur. The attack is expected imminently, likely targeting the event at the Army and Navy Club tomorrow. He took a sip of his drink, his military mind clicking into gear, pushing past the personal animosity. Then cancel the event. Your recommendation is noted. The decision has been made at a higher level not to cancel. Why the hell not? Because we're going to use it to catch them, I said, stepping further into the room. The event will proceed with enhanced security. It will be a controlled environment. We will have agents and operators embedded throughout. The goal is to draw the threat into a perimeter we control and neutralize it. He studied me, his gaze analytical. And who is we? A joint task force, FBI, D.C., Metro, and elements of Special Operations Command. Who's in command of this task force? I didn't blink. I am. The silence that followed was profound. He actually laughed. A short, bitter sound. You. They put you in command of a domestic counter-terror operation to protect this family? Is this a joke? Some kind of twisted test? It's not a test, General. It's an operation, and I am the officer in charge. You will be given a security detail. You will follow their instructions explicitly. You will not deviate from the planned program. You will not attempt to take charge. Is that clear? He set his glass down with a sharp crack. You are speaking to me as if I'm one of your privates. Right now, with all due respect, you are a principal under my protection. Your actions will determine not only your safety, but the safety of Jack, Caroline, your grandchildren, and 200 other people. Your pride is not a factor. Do you understand the protocols? His face was a stone mask. I've forgotten more about security protocols than you've ever learned. Major, it's general, I said, the word hanging in the air between us. And your experience is appreciated, but this is my operation, my rules. You can either cooperate, or I will have the Secret Service detain you for the duration of the threat for your own safety. Which will it be? The sheer audacity of the threat to detain a retired 4-star general, my own father, hung in the air. I saw the battle in his eyes, the towering rage, the disbelief, the ingrained instinct for chain of command. The latter one, but just barely. This is an insult, he seethed. It's security. The Secret Service will brief you and Jack at 0800. You will listen to them. You will follow their lead during the event. There will be no announcements, no changes to the program. We believe the threat may have inside information. Normalcy is our weapon. I turned to leave. Abby. I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. This threat, it's because of you, your work. I looked back at him. In his face, I didn't see anger now. I saw the cold, calculating assessment of a commander weighing the cost of a mission. I was the mission that had gone loud and drawn fire. Yes, I said simply, it is. He nodded once, a sharp, brittle motion. Then you'd better not fail. I met his gaze, the old, familiar words taking on a new, deadly meaning. I have no intention of failing, sir. I walked out, leaving him standing alone in the study, surrounded by the portraits of North warriors past. This time, I wasn't the one being exiled. I was the one standing guard at the gate. The dynamic had shifted irrevocably. The mission was in motion, and the enemy was coming. The Army and Navy Club on Farragut Square looked like a fortress preparing for a siege, albeit a discreet one. To the casual observer, it was just heightened security for a high-profile event. More D.C. police cruisers idling on the surrounding blocks. More serious-looking men in suits with coiled earpieces milling near the entrances. A bomb-sniffing dog working the perimeter for Washington, a city perpetually on some level of alert. It wasn't extraordinary, but I saw the web. From my position in the Joint Operations Center, a converted banquet room 2 floors below the main ballroom, the tactical display told the real story. My eyes tracked the glowing icons on the large screen monitor. Blue for friendlies, red for potential threats, green for the principals, my family. Frank Decker stood beside me, arms crossed. All teams report in. Perimeter is locked. Snipers are in position. Inner cordon is set. We've swept the building 3 times. Clean. He sounded confident, but a tightness around his eyes betrayed the strain. This wasn't a typical protective detail. This was bait in a trap, and everyone in the room knew it. The principals? I asked, my voice calm. I was in tactical gear now, a plain black polo and pants, a comms headset snug on my ear. I looked like one of the dozens of other security personnel. Anonymous, invisible. Your father and brother arrived 5 minutes ago via separate, staggered routes, Lisa Tran said from her bank of monitors, her eyes flicking between CCTV feeds and data streams. They're in the green room with Secret Service. Your sister-in-law and the children are at a safe house in Maryland. No tails, no surveillance detected. Good. I tapped my mic. All units. This is Sentinel Actual. Stand by. Maintain observation. Report any anomaly, no matter how small. A chorus of quiet affirmatives clicked in my earpiece. The anomaly came 20 minutes later. Eagle 1 to Sentinel. I have a vehicle. Dark blue panel van. Maryland plates. Circling the block. 3rd pass. Driving slow. No delivery markings. My eyes snapped to the feed from the sniper team on the roof across the street. The van was visible. A dark blob moving at a crawl. Run the plates. Already did. Tran said, plates are registered to a florist shop in Bethesda, reported stolen this morning. There's your trigger, Decker murmured. Maybe. I leaned closer to the screen. Too obvious. A stolen van? Circling in plain sight? Rashid isn't an amateur. I keyed my mic. Eagle 1. Maintain watch. Do not engage. Cobra team. Move to secondary positions. Assume the van is a distraction. Look for the real play. The ballroom above us was filling up. The gentle din of conversation and clinking glass filtered down through the floor. My father would be making his entrance soon. Jack would be at his side, the dutiful son, the perfect target. My personal phone, a secure burner, buzzed. A text from Jack. This is surreal. Dad's like a caged tiger. He keeps trying to give the Secret Service guys tips. A flicker of worry, quickly suppressed. Keep him calm. Stick to the agents. Another buzz, this time from an unknown number. Proud of you, General. Wish I was there. MSGTC. Carson. Somehow, he'd gotten the number. I didn't reply, but the message grounded me. A thread to a simpler time. To a version of respect that wasn't tangled in duty and danger. Sentinel, this is Viper 3. A new voice crackled in my ear. Viper was the call sign for the Delta team inside. Posing as waitstaff, I've got a thermal anomaly. Service hallway, east wing, near the kitchen loading dock. A patch of wall is reading 5 degrees, cooler than the surrounding area. Consistent with a draft from an unsecured access point. A cold spot could be a faulty vent, could be a door left ajar, could be a breach. Send a team to check it. Decker said immediately. Hold, I said. I studied the schematic. The service hallway led to a network of maintenance corridors and, ultimately, to the old coal cellar that had been converted to storage. It was a labyrinth, a perfect infiltration route. Viper 3, can you confirm visually without compromising your cover? Negative. Sentinel. The hallway is clear of personnel. The anomaly is behind a wall panel. Requires physical inspection. A choice. Send a team and potentially spook the hunters if they were already inside. Or wait and risk them getting closer to the ballroom. Deploy Echo Team. I ordered, referring to the 2-man FBI SWAT element stationed in the basement. Low profile. Check the anomaly. Viper 3. Guide them in. All other elements. Stand by. The van. Still circling. Eagle 1 reported. Stopped at a hydrant 1 block east. 2 males exited. Civilian clothes. Heading north on foot. Away from the venue. A distraction. It had to be. My gut tightened. They're inside. I said softly. How? Decker asked. We've had eyes on every entrance. They were already inside. Tran said suddenly, her fingers flying over a keyboard. The catering company, Gourmet Affairs. They delivered this afternoon. 6 personnel. Our background checks were clean because they were using the identities of the real staff, who are probably tied up in a warehouse in Anacostia right now. She pulled up the driver's license photos of the catering staff from the building's security checkpoint log that afternoon. Then she split the screen with intercepted mugshots from Europol. 2 faces matched, not perfectly, different hair, different glasses, but the bone structure was the same. Ashta Brigade operatives, known associates of Tariq Rashid. Son of a bitch. Decker hissed. They've been in the building for 4 hours. The trap had been sprung, but we were the ones inside it. Location of the catering staff now. I barked. Tran switched to the live ballroom feed. Zooming in. 3 were circulating with trays of champagne. 2 were behind the long bar. 1 was not visible. 6th is unaccounted for, she said, her voice tense. The unaccounted one. Find him. I switched channels. All units. Condition is go. Repeat. Condition is go. Hostiles are inside the venue. I count 5 visible in the ballroom. 1 unknown. They are armed. Assume concealed compact weapons. Viper elements. You are weapons free. Engage with extreme prejudice. Protect the principals. Eagle elements. Lock down the perimeter. No one in or out. I want that 6th hostile. The calm of the JOC evaporated into controlled chaos on the monitors. The ballroom continued its genteel illusion. The string quartet played. Laughter tinkled. My father was now at the podium, tapping the microphone, beginning to speak. So proud of my son, Jack, who embodies the finest traditions, Viper teams. Move to intercept. I said into the mic, my eyes glued to the screen. Do not let them get near the stage. The Delta operators began to move with fluid, unobtrusive grace. A waiter accidentally bumped into a guest, spilling a drink, creating a minor disturbance that subtly shifted the crowd. 2 others closed in on the bar. I saw one of the men behind the bar reach under the counter. Gun! I shouted. Bar. Left side. Everything happened at once. The man behind the bar didn't bring out a gun. He brought out a compact, cylindrical object, a flashbang. He pulled the pin and dropped it on the bar top. At the same instant, the 2 Delta operators at the bar moved. 1 vaulted the counter, tackling the man with the grenade. The other drew a suppressed pistol from under his tuxedo jacket and put 2 rounds into the chest of the 2nd bartender. But the flashbang hit the floor. Crack hump. The video feed from the ballroom whited out for a second, the audio dissolving into a scream of electronic static and real human screams. When the picture resolved, it was chaos. People were screaming, diving for cover, stampeding toward the exits. The elegant party had shattered into a nightmare. My father had been knocked back from the podium by the concussion. Jack was on top of him, shielding him with his own body. Good. He was remembering his training. On the monitors, I saw the other waiters now had weapons out, small machine pistols. They weren't firing wildly into the crowd. They were moving with purpose toward the stage, cutting through the panicked guests. They're after my father and Jack. I yelled, Viper, stop them. Contain the crowd. Get the principals to the panic room now. The pre-designated safe room was behind the stage. A Secret Service agent was already hauling my father to his feet, Jack following. They disappeared through a side door, just as a hail of bullets chewed into the podium where they'd been standing. Principals are secure in the panic room. An agent's voice confirmed in my ear. Door is sealed. It's a vault. They're safe. One weight lifted only for another to crush down. The crowd, hundreds of innocent people, were now in a kill zone, and the hostiles, realizing their primary target was gone, might decide to maximize casualties. Decker, get your HRT teams in there now. Evacuate through the west doors. Viper, suppress those shooters. Gunfire erupted on the feeds, short, controlled bursts from the Delta operators, the sharper cracks of the hostiles' weapons. People screamed and crawled. A VIP table overturned, providing scant cover. Sentinel, this is Echo Team. A tense voice came through. We found the breach. East Wing's service wall. There's a hole cut through into the old coal chute. It's a tunnel, leads out to the storm drain system. The 6th hostile came through here. He's not in the tunnel now. The 6th man, he was the key. The others were a distraction, a hammer to smash the front door. The 6th was the scalpel. He'd used the chaos, the tunnel, to get somewhere else. But where? My mind raced through the blueprints. The tunnel came up in the East Wing, near the administrative offices and the main electrical room. He's going for the lights, the power, I said. If he takes out the lights and the backup generators, the panic room's air circulation and comms are on battery backup. But the door's electronic locking mechanism has a manual override that takes 90 seconds to engage in a total blackout. 90 seconds where that door is vulnerable. Tran was already on it, pulling up the building's schematics. The main breaker room is in the sub-basement. Access from the East Wing stairwell or the service elevator. He'll take the stairs. Elevator is a death trap. I was moving, grabbing a rifle from the weapons rack. Decker, you have the ballroom. I'm going after the 6th. General, wait. Decker called. That's not your job. He's heading for my family, I said, checking the magazine. It's exactly my job. I was out the door and into the hallway before he could argue. The staircase was empty, silent compared to the distant thunder of panic and gunfire from above. I took the steps 2 at a time, descending into the bowels of the building. The air grew cooler, smelling of dust and old concrete. My earpiece crackled with updates. 2 hostiles down in the ballroom, 3 remaining, pinning us down near the north exit. HRT is breaching the main entrance. Crowd evacuation at 40%. It's a bottleneck. I tuned it out, focusing on the immediate threat. The sub-basement hallway was poorly lit, lined with pipes and humming electrical boxes. I moved low and fast, my weapon up, scanning corners. The schematics showed the main breaker room at the end of this hall. I heard it before I saw it. The soft snick of a wire being cut. Then another. I rounded the final corner. The door to the breaker room was ajar. Inside, a man in catering whites was hunched over a massive electrical panel, a pair of bolt cutters in his hand. Wires and cables snaked around his feet. He'd already disabled the main feeds. The backup generator conduits were next. He heard me, started to turn, one hand going to a pistol in his waistband. Don't, I said, my voice flat, my red dot sight centered on his chest. He froze. He was younger than I expected, late 20s, clean-shaven. He looked like any other catering worker, except for his eyes. They were cold, calculating, utterly devoid of fear. This was a true believer. You are the general, he said in lightly accented English, the one who captured Malik. I am. He nodded slowly, a strange respect in his gaze. You are a worthy target. His vengeance will be celebrated for generations. It ends here, I said. Drop the cutters. Kick the gun away. He smiled, a thin, ghastly thing. It does not end here. It only begins. His eyes flicked past me, down the hall. A classic diversion. I didn't take the bait. Last warning. He moved not for the gun, but for the bundle of wires in his other hand. A dead man's switch. A fail-safe. I didn't hesitate. My rifle barked twice. The shots were deafening in the confined space. The double tap took him center mass. He slammed back against the breaker panel, a look of surprise on his face, then slid to the floor. The bolt cutters and wires clattered from his lifeless hands. I moved in, weapon still trained, kicking his pistol away. He was gone. I keyed my mic, my breath coming hard. Sentinel to JOC. 6th hostile is down in the sub-basement breaker room. Threat to power is neutralized. Panic room integrity is secure. Copy. Sentinel. Tran's voice came back, tight with relief. Ballroom situation is stabilizing. HRT has secured the room. 3 hostiles dead, 1 wounded and in custody. We're doing a full sweep. I stood over the dead man, the adrenaline leaching away, leaving a cold hollow in its place. The silence of the basement was broken only by the distant, fading sounds of chaos above and the frantic chatter in my earpiece. It was over. The trap had worked. We had caught the attackers. The principals were safe. Then my earpiece buzzed with a new voice, strained and urgent. It was the Secret Service agent from inside the panic room. Sentinel, this is Guardian 1. We have a problem. What problem? I asked, the cold hollow turning to ice. The elder principal, General North. He's gone. What do you mean, gone? The door was sealed. He overrode the manual lock. He had the code. He said he wasn't going to hide while people were in danger. He armed himself with my partner's sidearm and exited the room. We cannot leave the lieutenant colonel unattended to pursue. My blood ran cold. My father, stubborn, proud, impossible James North. He'd left the one unbreachable safe place in the building. He was out there, in a building that might still have hostiles, with a gun he probably hadn't fired in years. Where did he go? I demanded, already moving back toward the stairs. Unknown. He said he was going to find you. Of course he did. He couldn't stand being protected, couldn't stand that I was in command. He had to insert himself, to prove something, to be the hero in his own damned story. I took the stairs 3 at a time, bursting back into the main level hallway. The sounds of the aftermath were clearer here. Shouts, crying, the tense commands of law enforcement, securing the scene. I switched channels. All units, be advised, we have a friendly on the loose. Repeat, a friendly is loose in the building. Elderly male, in dress uniform, armed. Do not engage. I say again, do not engage. Identify and contain. This is General North's father. I ran toward the ballroom, my mind racing. Where would he go? Not toward the fighting. He was a tactician. He'd go to command. He'd go to find whoever was in charge, to take over. He'd go to the JOC. I changed direction, heading for the back corridors that led to the converted banquet room. I rounded a corner and skidded to a halt. There he was, James North, still in his full dress uniform, a silver-haired statue amidst the chaos. He held a service pistol in a 2-handed grip, pointed at the floor, but ready. He was facing down 2 very young, very nervous D.C. SWAT officers who had their rifles trained on him, shouting for him to drop the weapon. Stand down, I yelled, my voice cutting through the tension. The SWAT officers glanced at me, confused. He's a friendly. Lower your weapons. They hesitated, then slowly complied. My father didn't lower his. His eyes were fixed on me, blazing with a mixture of fury, humiliation, and something else I couldn't name. What is the meaning of this? He demanded, his voice the full general's roar. You let these amateurs storm my son's event? You turned a celebration into a battlefield. I prevented an assassination, I said, my voice low and steady. I walked toward him, stopping a few feet away, well outside his reach. The battlefield was their choice. I just made sure we won. Now, for the last time, lower your weapon. Sir. The sir was a formality, a bone thrown to his rank. It tasted like ash in my mouth. He was jeopardizing everything, risking the lives of the men and women who had just contained the threat. All for his pride. He didn't move. The pistol remained in his hands. The 2 SWAT officers shifted uneasily. You disobeyed a direct order to remain in a secure location. I continued, my voice dropping, so only he could hear. You took a weapon from a federal agent. You are currently pointing that weapon in a secure area after an active shooter incident. Those men have every right to put you down. Now, put the gun down. Something in my tone, the utter lack of fear, the cold, impersonal authority, got through to him. The fire in his eyes didn't die, but it guttered the reality of his situation, of the 2 rifles that had only moments ago been aimed at his heart, seemed to penetrate the fog of his outrage. Slowly, stiffly, he lowered the pistol, engaging the safety with a sharp click. One of the SWAT officers moved forward carefully and took it from his hand. Take General North to the JOC and secure him in the holding area, I said, my eyes never leaving my father's. The holding area was a small pantry we designated for detainees. Do not let him leave. He is to have no communication. Is that understood?" "Yes, ma'am," the officer said, clearly relieved. My father's jaw worked. He looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw not anger, not disappointment, but a kind of shattered bewilderment. The world had finally stopped making sense according to his rules. I had just had him disarmed and detained by a patrolman, his own daughter. He didn't say a word as the officers led him away. I stood alone in the hallway for a moment, letting the shakes take me now that no one could see. The adrenaline crash was brutal. I leaned against the wall, taking deep, slow breaths. Decker's voice came over the comms. "Sentinel, Jock, ballroom is secure. All hostiles accounted for. Casualties: 3 hostiles Kia, 1 in custody. Friendly. For civilians with minor injuries from the flashbang and crowd crush. No fatalities. The principals in the panic room are unharmed and asking for you." I pushed off the wall, forcing strength back into my limbs. The job wasn't done. "Copy, Jock. I'm on my way. Start the after action. I want a full forensic sweep and get a medic to check on the detainee." I shot him center mass, but he might have had time to talk. As I walked back toward the ballroom, now a crime scene lit by harsh police lights, the weight of the evening settled on me. The trap had closed. The enemy was dead or captured. My family was safe. The mission was a success. But as I stepped through the shattered remains of the ballroom doors, seeing the overturned tables, the spilled champagne soaking into the carpet next to dark stains of blood, hearing the sobs of the shocked and the calm, professional voices of the agents, I knew the real battle was just beginning. The battle in my father's eyes. The battle for what came after the gunfire stopped. I had won the night, but the war for my father's respect and for my own place in the shadow of the North name felt far from over. 3 weeks, 21 days of Senate hearings, internal reviews, and media storms that made the initial General North story look like a footnote. I spent them in a sterile suite at Fort McNair, debriefing by day and staring at the ceiling by night, replaying the sounds of gunfire in the ballroom and the shattered look in my father's eyes in the hallway. The official report, when it landed on my secure terminal, was a masterpiece of bureaucratic language. Operation Safeguard concluded with the successful interdiction of a terrorist cell. All principals protected, civilian casualties minimized, on-scene command by BG North deemed effective and proportionate. My father's detention was listed as a necessary security containment of a non-compliant principal. I could almost hear his teeth grinding from across the Potomac. My promotion ceremony, the one I'd missed, was to be quietly held at the Pentagon. General Mitchell had other ideas. "The hell with quiet," he grumbled over a secure line. "You earned that star in the shadows. You defended it in the spotlight. The world should see you get it. Congress is pushing for it. Bipartisan. Can you believe it? A unity moment." He sounded disgusted by the politics, but shrewd enough to use them. "Be at the Capitol. Room H. 217. 1,000 hours. Dress blues. And bring your game face. The vultures are circling." The vultures, my father's allies on the Armed Services Committee, led by the venerable and vicious Senator Reynolds, had demanded a closed-door hearing before any ceremony, a chance to understand the events and assess judgment, a chance to try and strip the star off my shoulder before it was formally pinned on. Room H. 217 was all dark wood, heavy curtains, and portraits of dead statesmen. The long dais loomed over a single, lonely chair facing it. The committee members filed in, their expressions ranging from curious to openly hostile. Senator Reynolds, at the center, didn't look at me. He shuffled papers, a small, cold smile on his lips. My father was not in the room. I hadn't seen or spoken to him since the night of the attack. I didn't know if that was a good or bad sign. This hearing of the Senate Armed Services Subcommittee will come to order. Reynolds intoned, gaveling lightly. "We are here today to receive testimony from Brigadier General-Select Avi North regarding the operation at the Army and Navy Club on the night of April 15th and the broader circumstances of her rapid promotion. General North, you are under oath." The questioning started softly, a slow probing of the operation's timeline, the intelligence, The rules of engagement. I answered in clipped, precise military jargon, citing code sections and operational protocols. The senators listened, a few taking notes. Then Reynolds leaned into his microphone. General North, let's talk about command climate. You were placed in command of a complex domestic counterterror operation involving multiple federal and local agencies with whom you had no established command relationship. Less than 24 hours after your own promotion was confirmed, many would call that precipitous, a recipe for confusion, if not disaster. Here it came. The command relationship was established by direct executive order from the Secretary of Defense. Sir, the agencies involved are professionals. We used established Joint Task Force protocols. There was no confusion in the chain of command. No confusion? Reynolds's eyebrows rose. Yet during the operation, you personally detained a retired four-star general, a man with more service time than you have been alive, a former member of this very committee's advisory board. You had him disarmed by police and held in a pantry. He said the word with distilled contempt. A murmur went through the room. This was the story they'd been waiting for, the family drama, the humiliation of James North. The individual in question, I said, carefully avoiding the word father, was a designated principal under my protection. He willfully and knowingly violated explicit security protocols, exited a hardened safe room, appropriated a weapon from a federal agent, and entered an active tactical environment. His actions endangered his own life, the lives of the agents tasked with protecting him, and could have compromised the entire operation. Containing him was a necessary security action. His rank was, and is, irrelevant to that calculation. Irrelevant. Reynolds's voice grew harder. Or convenient. This man is your father, General, a man with whom you have a publicly acknowledged, deeply contentious relationship, a man who had, just days before, publicly criticized your career path. Many would look at your decision to have him handcuffed. He was not handcuffed. Senator, detained then, and see not a security decision, but an act of personal vengeance, a chance to finally exert authority over the father who disapproved of you. The room was utterly still. This was the attack, not on my tactics, but on my character, my motives. They were trying to frame my command decision as a petty, personal feud. I felt a cold anger settle in my chest. I leaned forward slightly, my eyes locking onto Reynolds's. Senator, with all due respect, you are suggesting I would risk the lives of over 200 civilians, a joint task force, and the success of a counterterrorism operation to settle a family argument, that I would allow personal feelings to override the safety of the people I was sworn to protect, including my own brother, who was in that room. That is not only a gross misrepresentation of events, it is an insult to every soldier, agent, and officer who served under my command that night. They followed my orders because they were sound orders, designed to complete the mission and preserve life, not because of my family drama. Reynolds's face flushed. You are here to answer questions, General, not to make speeches. I am answering your question, Senator. You asked about my judgment. My judgment was that an uncontrolled, armed individual in an active shooter scenario is a threat. I neutralized the threat. The fact that the individual shares my DNA does not change the tactical reality. If you believe I should have given him special treatment because he is my father, then you are advocating for a double standard that would get people killed. Sir, a younger senator from the other side of the aisle, a woman with sharp eyes, hid a smile behind her hand. Reynolds looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Let's move on, he said tightly. The promotion itself. Your record is unorthodox. You bypassed the traditional career pipeline favored by many officers, including your father. Your achievements, while commendable, are shrouded in classification. This committee relies on trust, the trust that those we promote to the highest ranks have the temperament, judgment, and respect for institutions that the office demands. He let the last phrase hang. Your public, confrontational relationship with your father, a pillar of those very institutions, calls that into question. Can you lead effectively within the system you seem to hold in such contempt? It was the same argument, dressed in different clothes. I wasn't a team player. I didn't respect the club. I'd gotten my star by playing a different, dirtier game, and now I was embarrassing the establishment. Before I could answer, the heavy door at the back of the hearing room opened with a soft click. Every head turned. James North stood in the doorway. He was in his full dress uniform, every medal perfectly aligned, his posture erect, but he looked older, the lines on his face etched deeper, the arrogance replaced by a grim, weary determination. He hadn't been scheduled to testify. His presence sent a shockwave through the room. Senator Reynolds recovered first, a smug look settling on his face. "Ah, General North, please come in. Your insight, as the wronged party in this affair, would be invaluable." My father walked down the center aisle, his footsteps echoing. He didn't look at me. He stopped before the dais. "Thank you, Senator, but I'm not here as a wronged party." His voice, the familiar baritone, was softer than I'd ever heard it. It commanded the room, not through volume, but through sheer, startling presence. "I'm here as a witness, and I request permission to address the committee." Reynolds, wrong-footed, gestured magnanimously. "By all means, General, please tell us about your daughter's judgment." My father turned, and for the first time in 3 weeks, his eyes met mine. I braced for the fury, the condemnation, but I saw none of that. I saw only a profound, exhausted honesty. He turned back to the senators. "For the record, my daughter's judgment on the night of April 15th was flawless. Mine was not." He paused, letting the words sink in. I disobeyed a direct order. I took a weapon. I inserted myself into an active operation. In doing so, I became what any competent commander would identify as a hostile actor. Brigadier General North identified the threat and neutralized it. She did her duty. I failed mine. The room was dead silent. Reynolds's mouth was slightly open. My daughter asked me, weeks ago, what kind of legacy I was building. My father continued, his gaze sweeping the panel. "One that exiles those who don't conform? One that values tradition over truth?" She was right to ask. I have spent a lifetime confusing loyalty to an institution with loyalty to a fossilized idea of what that institution should be. I believed the path to honor was narrow, paved by the footsteps of those who came before. My daughter had the courage to cut a new trail. He looked at me again, and his voice grew thicker. "Abby, General North did not earn her promotion in spite of her choices. She earned it because of them, because she led soldiers in combat and brought them home, because she made hard calls in the dark with no one watching. The operation at the club proved that. She saw the threat clearly. She executed the plan. She protected everyone in that room, even the stubborn old fool who was trying to get himself killed. That is not a lack of judgment. That is command of the highest order." He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders as if facing a firing squad of his own making. "So, Senator Reynolds, you ask if she respects our institutions? She respects the purpose of our institutions, to defend this country with courage and integrity. She simply refuses to worship the plaster saints we've placed in its hallways, including me, and after the last few weeks, I've come to believe that is the highest form of respect, and the only kind that matters." He finished. The silence was absolute. Stunned, Senator Reynolds looked as if he'd been gut-punched. His entire line of attack, that I was driven by personal animus, that I disrespected the establishment, had just been dismantled by the establishment's favorite son. My father gave a sharp, single nod to the committee, turned on his heel, and walked back up the aisle. He paused as he passed my chair. He didn't look at me, but he stopped for a fraction of a second, his hand brushing the back of my chair, the lightest touch. Then he was gone. The door closing softly behind him. The hearing was over. Reynolds, deflated and outmaneuvered, adjourned it with a perfunctory mumble. The other senators filed out, several giving me respectful nods as they passed. I sat in the empty, silent room for a long time, the echo of my father's words hanging in the air. It wasn't an embrace. It wasn't a declaration of love. It was something harder and perhaps more valuable. A surrender, a recognition, from one general to another. The ceremony in the Capitol Rotunda was everything Mitchell had promised. Public, political, and dripping with pomp. The great dome soared overhead. Sunlight streaming through the windows. A joint color guard stood at attention. Dozens of senators, representatives, and generals formed a sea of dark suits and dress uniforms. The press lined the back, cameras clicking. I stood at the front, my back straight, my hands at my sides. General Mitchell stood before me, a small blue box in his hands. The Secretary of Defense was at the podium, finishing his remarks. A career of singular dedication and courage, a leader for a new era. It is my great honor to preside over this ceremony. Mitchell opened the box. Nestled inside was a single silver star. He pinned it to my epaulette, the weight surprisingly slight, the significance crushing. Then he pinned the second. He stepped back, came to attention, and saluted. "Congratulations, General North." I returned the salute, my heart hammering. The room burst into applause. I saw Jack near the front, beaming, Caroline beside him with a strained but acceptable smile. I saw Master Sergeant Carson standing proudly in a suit near the back, giving me a slow, deliberate nod, and I saw my father. He stood slightly apart, near a column. He was not applauding. He was watching, his face an unreadable mask. The secretary approached, shook my hand, and moved aside for the ceremonial first salute. Tradition dictated the new general pay a silver dollar to the first person who salutes them, usually a mentor or a loved one. I had made my choice. I turned from the dais, my boots clicking on the marble floor. The crowd's applause faltered, then died as they saw where I was walking. I stopped in front of Master Sergeant Mike Carson. I came to attention, and I saluted him. His eyes, those old soldier's eyes, glistened for just a second. He returned the salute, crisp and perfect. I lowered my hand, reached into my pocket, and pulled out the silver dollar. But I also pulled out the other object I'd brought, my grandfather's watch, the one Jack had given me. I held them both out to him. The first salute, "Master Sergeant," I said, my voice clear, "and a watch that belongs to a soldier. I'd be honored if you'd keep it." Carson looked at the watch, then at me. He took the silver dollar, the traditional token. Then he gently closed my fingers over the watch. "You keep that, General," he said, his voice rough. "Your grandfather would want you to have it. You've more than earned it." He leaned in slightly. "And you don't need to salute me anymore, ma'am. The honor's all mine." I nodded, a lump in my throat, and turned back to face the room. My eyes found my father's. He was still watching. His mask finally cracked. I saw the struggle there, the old pride, de wounded ego, and something new a dawning, reluctant understanding. I had not chosen him. I had chosen the man who taught me, who believed in me without condition. The message was clear. The ceremony ended. The crowd began to mingle, surging forward to offer congratulations. I was surrounded by handshakes and backslaps, moving through the throng on autopilot. I finally broke free, needing air, and stepped out onto a balcony overlooking the National Mall. The spring breeze was cool. I heard the footsteps behind me. I knew who it was without turning. "General North," my father said. I turned. James North stood a few feet away, his hands clasped behind his back. He looked at the star on my shoulder, then at my face. "That was a good choice," he said finally, nodding back toward the rotunda. "Carson, he was always a better man than me." I said nothing. "The hearing," he began, then stopped. He seemed to be searching for words. A general without a map. What I said, it was true, all of it. You were right. About the path. It was as close to an apology as James North would ever get. And for the first time, I realized I didn't need the apology. I had needed his surrender, and he had given it. That was enough. "Thank you, General," I said formally. He flinched almost imperceptibly at the title. At the distance, "Jack and his family are coming to the house for dinner. Caroline is managing. It would be appropriate if you joined us." The invitation, the olive branch, the return to the fold, the reconciliation the press would drool over, the perfect ending to the North family saga. I looked out over the mall, at the Washington Monument piercing the sky, at the buildings of power lining the streets. I thought of the sterile office at Special Operations Command that was now mine, of the files waiting on my desk, of the silent shadow war that didn't care about family dinners or legacies. "I appreciate the invitation, sir," I said, turning back to him, "but I have a briefing at 1600. My unit deploys in 48 hours. He absorbed this, the rejection, the priority. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He simply nodded. Of course, the mission comes first. The old mantra, now used to accept my absence. He stood there for another moment, an awkward statue of a man. Then, slowly, deliberately, he came to attention. He wasn't in uniform, but his posture was perfect. He looked me in the eye and raised his hand in a salute. It wasn't the angry, challenging salute of Carson at the party. It was different, cleaner, a salute between equals, a salute of respect, offered freely from a general who finally saw another general standing before him. I held his gaze for a beat, then returned the salute. Just as crisp, he lowered his hand, gave one last, unreadable look, and walked back inside, leaving me alone on the balcony. I looked down at the star on my shoulder, then out at the city again. The weight of the name, the shadow of the legacy. It was all still there, but it was behind me now. I was no longer standing in it. I was standing in my own light. My driver, a new specialist, appeared at the balcony door. General, the car is ready, ma'am. General Mitchell sends his compliments and says he'll see you at the briefing. Thank you, specialist, I said. I took one last breath of the open air, then turned my back on the view and walked inside, through the ornate halls of power, past the staring crowds and clicking cameras. The doors swung open ahead of me, held by Marines who snapped to attention. Outside, the black SUV with government plates idled at the curb. Master Sergeant Carson was leaning against it, waiting. He pushed off as I approached. Need a ride to the airport? General, he asked, a ghost of a smile on his face. I do. Master Sergeant. He opened the back door for me. I paused before getting in, looking back at the Capitol Dome one last time. Then I slid into the seat. Carson got in the front, beside the driver. Where to, ma'am? I met his eyes in the rearview mirror. Forward, I said. The car pulled away from the curb, leaving the monuments and the memories behind, carrying me toward the waiting aircraft, the silent war, and the command that was finally, irrevocably, my own.